Let's see, the public.
How about introductions?
Yeah, we'll do the introductions. Sitting at the table, we have John Siclari, he's our director. Christy McPadden is our administrator in the office. And I'm Nelson Mallitz, I'm the chairman of the commission. We have Loretta Donovan one of the commissioners, and Jeff Sinkowitz is the attorney. Probably got the longest corporate memory of anybody. Then we have Michael DeVal. He's one of the commissioners. And then the gal at the end is Allison Kennedy, is that right? Yeah, she's the, just taking notes for us, and she's the recorder.
Should we turn on a microphone so everybody
I
can?
think, well, I don't know. I'll speak louder.
The ones on the table, as long as you see the red light, they're on.
Okay,
Red
thank
light
you.
is on.
I'll make sure everybody can
This
hear
is
us.
yours, Allison, this one, this the one?
Allison?
That's my recorder
Okay.
in the middle, but he's talking about these here. If you press the button and the red light is on, then your microphone is on for
Okay.
the recording.
Okay. Okay, let's give a little background. The purpose of this public hearing is to take comments regarding proposed moratorium of adding more flow onto the system as of January 1, 2022. And so I'd like to, I'll give a little background about how we got there and what we're going to do. And then Jeff Sinkowitz is going to moderate the public hearing part. And the purpose of the public hearing is to receive comments, and it's not going to be so much to have a dialogue, but just simply to receive comments. So just so you know, those with a long memory will recall that the Brookfield sewers were initiated back in about 1975 in order to deal with the commercial activity along Federal Road. And it started, the first installation was from about Barnbeck South, roughly, to the, we call it the Caldor Station, and everything down in the south end of town. And Danbury asked us for a sewer capacity decision in 2016. That was 5 years ago. And so the sewer growth was very slow up until that point. And since then, there came the incentive in affordable housing, which was sort of a step change in the activity in the town. So that same subsequently. And when the decision was made to actually lower the capacity, because Danbury was going to put on a big phosphorus remediation system and reduce the capacity of the plant from 15 to 12 million gallons a year. We brought the case to the first selectman, and he thought it would be best to reduce the capacity rather than pay more. And one of the reasons why the WPCA was thinking in that way was because the existing sewer company customers would have to pay for the additional capacity for future people. And so that was a little bit awkward. So anyway, that was a decision taken back then, right or wrong. And it wasn't taken before any of the town boards, so that was just the decision, and we passed that on to Danbury. Our current agreement with Danbury is to have 500,000 gallons a day through 2033, and they would have to renegotiate agreement with us, so we have a chance maybe to not accept the reduced capacity. And Okay, so subsequent to 2016, the affordable, or incentive housing came, and then the Candlewood Lake study was happened in 2018. We were looking to add Candlewood Lake Peninsula to the sewer system, and that's still in play. And so it would benefit Danbury to accept additional flow to handle the Candlewood area, because it'll benefit the lake and benefit them. And Candlewood, but the Candlewood sewer, there's now a Candlewood sewering proposal before the state, and that is a request for a grant that was submitted a little over a month ago. It's now sitting in Hartford, which is not a good place, but anyway, that's where it is. And so, but part of that study is to request an early review that will address moratorium issues. In other words, how else might Brookfield get more sewer capacity is part of the study. That's before the state. And it also, we want to do an aerial study, but apparently that's been done by Westcog, the whole study, where the whole town have 1 foot contours, which is amazing. Years ago, it was a lot of money. Anyway, that's before the state. Then, so what are some of the options? And some of the options include simply to purchase more treatment allowance from Danbury. They're processing about 8 or 9 million gallons a day, and the new capacity would be 12 million gallons. So there's some room. Whether or not we could horn in even temporarily to that room, it's really basically a political decision, but they would get more revenue from Brookfield to sponsor their treatment plant if we would participate, if they'd allow us to participate. So the other thing is to get a permanent allowance from Danbury, or even a temporary one until Danbury reaches its full capacity. And they don't project that to be out for a long time. In the meantime, we'd have opportunity to figure out how else we might deal with the sewer flow. Another option was to purchase capacity from Bethel. They have about 2 million gallon a day allowance, and they're using about 1.1 million, so there's some room. They claim their development schedule is going to require 2 million gallons, but again, we could get perhaps a temporary allowance to use some of their capacity and pay Bethel to use some of their Danbury capacity as an option. Another one, which is probably less desirable, is simply to pump to Bethel and let them handle it, and then they would take it out of their allocation. That would require some investment. Another option is to pump to New Milford. They have capacity. And in New Milford, it would require running a line from Brookfield up to their plant or close to it. Their pump stations along the way are small, so that would require investment. And another option is for Brookfield to build its own treatment system. There's alternate ways to do it, except the big vats and tanks and all the other sort of things. So that's happening in America, like the Poconos, for example. There's no big treatment plant. They'd run it through a bunch of trailer-looking things, and then it comes out clean, and put it into their rivers or whatever. These discussions are basically mayor-to-mayor discussions. So it's basically leadership issues as to how Brookfield might gain more capacity. And however, the elections are coming up next week, so with the turnstiles turning between Danbury, maybe Brookfield, who knows, that we just have to wait a little bit. In the meantime, we have this hearing to take comments. Okay, I will, if somebody has something to clarify what I said, I'll take that, but otherwise we'll move into the public hearing parts and take comments.
Chair?
Okay. Yeah, one more commissioner here. This is is Matt Brown. Okay, that's Brown. Okay, Jeff, would you,
Sure. Just for
Open
the,
the public
just for the purposes of the record, I would also point out that we have, I believe, some commissioners on, participating remotely. I saw at least one, maybe two on the screen. I can't remember.
Yeah,
have
Sherry
Jerry.
is there, but no, I don't see another commissioner. I think he's
Okay,
the only
all
one.
right. So the purpose of this public hearing, I'll just, I won't read the whole legal notice, but I'll just summarize it very quickly. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept public comment on two items. The first item is a proposed amendment to the sewer use regulations, and the second item is a proposed amendment to the water pollution control plan. The proposed amendments, the proposed amendment to the sewer use regulations would, it would be to section 1.2, which is a section entitled Treatment Capacity Management. And the second one is section 2.0, which is sewer connection permit. The authority is proposing to amend section 1.2, Treatment Capacity Management, to restrict the properties to which sewer service is available and to restrict such availability to a maximum discharge of 2,000 gallons per day, basically per property, subject, however, to a further determination of capacity availability. And by that, there's presently a section there's essentially a paragraph in that section now which says that whether or not these amendments pass, the sewer commission has to determine in acting on any application that there's capacity. Section 2, the primary purpose of Section 2, sewer connection permit standards of construction, lapse of permit. The regulations now say that a permit is good for 2 years, and a property owner could request an extension for 2 years. And the authority has typically been pretty liberal in granting extensions. They've done more than one on occasion. But the regulation now says that the extension is a maximum period of 1 year. And the effect of that would be, if you have a permit, you gotta use it or lose it. You just can't be pulling permits, reserving capacity, not building your project out, and other people are wanting to get sewer service that they can't. The amendments to the water pollution control plan essentially restricts the properties to which sewer service is going to be made available. The primary restriction, or the primary properties to whom sewer service will be made available with the capacity cap, are properties who have received a benefit assessment. So that would be properties essentially within the central sewer corridor, and it would prohibit the commission or the authority from, extending it to areas which have not paid benefit assessments. And the authority has done that in the past. So those are the general changes to the regulations and to the water pollution control plan. And what's driving this is, I think, I would say for the benefit of the public, two things. One is that supposedly we understand that the Danbury plant is supposed to come online either in 2022 or at the latest 2023. And I think we're expecting Danbury to come to us and say, okay, we're ready, new agreement, 380, forget the 500,000 gallons a day. So we have the prospect that we're going to have have a demand placed on the WPCA that it has to restrict its discharges to 380,000 gallons a day in the immediate future. And we also have on our books, we're presently discharging, depending on which meters you read, we can say 315,000 a day, maybe a little more.
310, 350.
Yeah, in that range.
That's over the year, but
Yeah.
last month's been like 345 rate.
Yeah, lately it's higher. But if it's 345, that means we only got 40,000 gallons or less, 35,000 gallons of available capacity. And we have permits on the books that have not expired of, I think, 114,000 gallons, if I'm not mistaken. Permits that have been approved but not expired, something in that range. So the numbers add up to well over 380,000 gallons a day. So with that background, that's the background for why the authority is proposing these changes. And so I will open up the public hearing and we'll start accepting comments.
Please state your name
Oh, yeah,
and
we-
address
yeah.
for the record.
Yeah, we do need names and addresses.
My name is Hal Kerfus, 42 Obtuse Road North. And I've been in development for 35 years, and I have an awful lot of questions. The decision you're making is beyond our capacity to say which way you should go. We're just saying it's a cause and effect relationship. We are the effect. And there are a lot of things in place right now, and I'm just wondering how they are affected. For instance, I think that there's about 400 units of residential, perhaps more actually, that are on the books right now. They're approved, and a lot of them are coming to fruition now. You gotta remember, with these applications, they take a couple of years really to get approved. People spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on them to get them approved. Then it becomes a question of raising 25, 35 million to build them out. And they're in that process of doing that, and they're starting to get in that capacity where they can start building. Now, if they start building, where does that leave them in terms of this reduction in sewer capacity? Do they have the capability of getting sewer capacity? What can we do about it if they don't have it? Because they're gonna be left high and dry. And there's a big investment that has been made by all of these people. And the town's standing in terms of the investment community will not be very, very good if they get deterred from doing what they had planned to do for many years now. So it's a very, very important thing. And again, I can't tell you how you can get this thing resolved. I will say that a lot of these developments, you might have 300 units or something like that. They're not gonna get built overnight. They're gonna get built in phases. So they wouldn't be using it, the capacity that is, for perhaps 6, 8 months, a year, before they even have to use it. Are we going to be in a situation at that point that we have more capacity to deal with? So there's an awful lot of questions I have, and I'm sure the other people in the audience we have. We're all here for the same thing. A lot of questions. We don't want to see this thing go down. We don't want to see Brookfield get a bad eye, black eye in the community, in terms of the investment community. And I speak as 35 years in development, commercial real estate development. I was the past chairman of the Economic Development Commission, so I think my voice should be heard. Thank you.
If we had answers to all the questions, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, of course. I don't envy you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a
Okay.
hand up over here.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm Greg Dembowski. I am the Economic Development Director for the town, have been for the past 7 years. So as you know, we have development, I have two comments. As you know, we have development services meetings once or twice a month. And over the past several months, even during COVID, developers have been coming into Town Hall, talking to us about their proposed developments. You know, in 2012, we started the revitalization plan for our town center district. It's taken us 9 years to get where we are today. And only 2 of the 6 phases for streetscape are completed. The next 2 will be built next summer. We're gonna really need some help addressing questions developers have when they come into our development services meeting about capacity and should they consider their projects to go forward or not. So we're gonna really need some help with this, Nelson, when those questions come up and those calls come to my office. I wanna make sure I'm speaking very clearly and accurately about what all this means and where we go forward. And those conversations happen very regularly in the land use office. My second question is, you mentioned many options, and it'd be really good, and I know you're as analytical as I, to do an analysis on the impact of those options and, you know, what's going to be the best path to pursue going forward. So, thank you.
Greg, did you state your address for the record?
28 Green Hill Drive, Brookfield.
Thank you. Greg?
I think there was another person.
Oh,
who
well,
did too.
okay.
Go ahead.
Greg Steiner, Pershing Corporate Park, 2 Parkland Drive. Just a little history, I'd like to thank you for inviting us here, but I just want you to realize too that it was my father and a cousin and uncle, cousin are the ones that started the pump station on Route 133. We partnered with the YMCA and Dan Bertram, and we donated the property so that pump station could be built in 1986. We had no plans at that time, but we kind of had an agreement, you know, a good faith agreement that if we build it, they will come. So it's taken us 30 years to get there. We have 1 building in the cornfield now, as everyone knows, with the Hawleys. We'd love to do more, but it's going to completely shut down any other business that we want to do on that cornfield. I've got approval for about 100,000 square feet of 4 more buildings for P&Z that we've been kind of waiting for this economy to figure out what's going to happen, the pandemic, and what's going to move around. So we're out there marketing that, trying to figure out what we're going to do. And something like this, even 2,000 gallons of building is just, you know, we usually used to have 2,000 gallons an acre, but we never had. And I have the same concern I have in a corporate park. It's got Branson in, we have 13 acres there, you know, that's been a great thing for the town. That doesn't affect anybody. It's great tax base, it's great, brings people in, brand new state-of-the-art building. We would love to do, we got 60 more acres in Berkshire Corporate Park in Brookfield, and that's the nicest property that we have left in the park. That's easily developed. So for something like this to come up and just put a complete stop on it. I know one of your suggestions, Jeff, was about just pump the sewer to Bethel. We spent how many years did we spend trying to get an intercompany between ourselves and Bethel to Danbury? So that I don't believe is an option at all. I just think we have to go to either talk to our elected leaders and bring them together. So you have to give us, if we have to pay for it, we have to pay for it. It's a cost of doing business. But if we don't go and start to buy some more capacity, we're going to shut the entire town down. Like Al said, no one's going to want to come to Brookfield because they're going to say, why should I go there? I'm going to go to Bethel, I'm going to go to Danbury. They want us to come in. And I'm sure Danbury is going to be looking for revenue. Of course they are, because they need to pay for their investment. But it's no different than a water company or a power company. Like, this is a utility and an investment that needs to be done to keep Brookfield growing the way it's been growing.
I'll just make 2 comments or 2 responses to you. It's my understanding that the Danbury has allocated to the various towns the capacity, including itself. That's number 1. Number 2, years ago when there was the pollution abatement orders that led to the 3 condo project, the WPCA was trying to negotiate to go through Bethel, and Danbury's position at that time was that even if we went through Bethel, it was against our allocation. So we don't. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns going forward. We don't know what's going to happen. But
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah. Sure.
Danbury, so everyone knows, Danbury reduced their capacity in their upgrade.
Okay.
Everyone's clear on that, and we had no say in that.
Right. But
Therefore, it leaves less room at the plant for area towns. So that's something that's kind of handcuffing us here too.
But so as of right now, we still have up to 500,000 until our so shouldn't we just go there until something happens and say,
The-
you know? I don't know.
you know, but they say, you know, I mean, I don't want to get into a big dialogue here, but I think your points are taken by the board. But as the lawyer, the risk I see is we're pumping 450 a day. We're still within our 500,
Right.
and they say, oh, you gotta ratchet down the discharge to 380. I'd rather be fighting Danbury now than fighting you later, having the WPCA go to its customers and say, oh, forget it, you gotta cut your discharges by 10, 15, 20%. So,
You're gonna kill all the development so that you don't have to worry about it. You put that on, there's gonna be no way around it.
Okay. The gentleman with the blue Oxford shirt is here.
Yeah.
Paul Scalzo, 32 Torrey Lane, echoing Greg and Hal. The way I look at it is like every 40 years, there's a 5-year window that we have to develop our properties. That's the way it seems to go. And now's the time that we're finally talking to people. I mean, we've had properties, some of us 30, 40 years, and never been able to develop them. I would like you to hit it head on right now, meaning that I wouldn't want this word to get out there either, because that'll slow down the whole process. I'd rather attack it head on. And I guess I didn't realize it's 500,000 gallons we can go up to.
Our current contract is 500, but they've told us we're cutting you back to 380.
Okay, so my next question would be, what happens when we go over the 380? It sounds like we have a lot of projects.
We don't know.
Okay, I think you ought to hit it head on now. That's my comment. And if you have to assess the property owners, so be it. I mean, I think we can't do it without that.
Gary.
Thank you. Gary Michael, I live at 52 Deer Hill Avenue in Danbury, Connecticut. I guess my first question is to Jeff. Have you received any written correspondence from the city of Danbury allocating your capacity to 380?
I haven't.
Yes or no, basically?
No,
Or has the
Jeff,
commission?
I think the commission the authority has.
You have received written confirmation? Because I'm hearing confirmation from the city hall in Danbury that they're gonna be online a lot sooner than they anticipated. We spent $73 million to upgrade the capacity of the sewer treatment plant, and that this moratorium that you're proposing, it may be a little premature. Now, I also heard Nelson say that there is excess capacity in Bethel of 800,000 gallons, and I have an understanding that Brookfield is the only one that the capacity is being cut. So is it because you didn't want to allocate 500,000 to pay for future development on the sewer assessment? In other words, you have to pay a premium to the city of Danbury for the improvements that are being made to the sewer treatment plant. Which, by the way, the state is going to give you the money, and you could pay it over 30 years. So I don't understand what's going on here. Am I missing the point? Please clarify it for me.
I think the point that the WPCA has to contend with is it's been told its capacity is going to be reduced to 380, and it's got a certain amount of flow already of over 300,000, and it's got permits on the books that are going to, if all of it gets built out and all that capacity is utilized, we're going to be well over 380.
Jeff, with regard to your calculations, I think it's gonna be well over 500. It's gonna be closer to 7. You have 221,000 on the books, apparently, and you have some permits that haven't expired yet, there are another 70,000, and you have some waste, there's 12,000. It's well over 500. But as a board to represent the sewer commission, I understand you wanna keep your costs at a certain level and not put these burdens on the users of the properties, basically, because they have to pay the charges, and they don't wanna pay for future capacity. But you should act to buy the excess capacity from Bethel, or check with Danbury and get something in writing that allows you to go over the 500,000. Because those numbers, if they do come to pass, it's gonna be absorbed by the users of the property. They're gonna pay for the sewer use. It's as simple as that. They're gonna pay for the improvements to Danbury's sewer treatment plant. And I think there's more work that should be done before you impose this moratorium. Please bear in mind also that, you know, technology's changing. I mean, the toilets that you put in, you know, 10 years ago were using 7, 8 gallons, and now the toilets that are being installed now in the new 400 units that are gonna be developed are 2 or 3 less, 2 or 3 gallons. So as development of the town goes, so does the technology to improve, to get better energy efficient sewer treatment facilities. And the last thing I just wanna say is, I think that this commission basically is doing what's in the best interest of the community. I'm not disagreeing with that. I just like to see you interact with the politicians from the surrounding towns, especially Danbury. David Day is the chairman who basically handles that, and I'm led to believe that there's plenty of capacity in Danbury's treatment plant to handle whatever your needs or the town's needs might be. And I'd like the commission to look into it a little bit more. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Roy?
For the record, Steve Solis,
Steve.
CCA. Is there a projected timeline for the moratorium?
January 1st.
No, for the, is there a horizon timeline?
No. An end time?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And for the 1-year extension, for any project that currently has an approval, in order for that project to maintain its proposed discharge, what needs to occur? Do they just need to get a CO, or do they need to get a building permit, or do they need to start construction? What will qualify that project?
I believe if you look at the regulation, it's covered. I think it starts construction.
Start of construction.
Yeah.
So construction could take, you know, multiple years, so as long as they start before the expiration date.
I believe that's what the I think that's what the regulation says, start construction.
Yeah, I think
but
he's correct.
Yeah.
That means more than just the first shovel in the ground, you know, but in other words, the
little
ribbon cutting, you know, has to be.
Cement, whatever, yeah.
Good evening.
Mr. Young, good evening.
My name is Roy Young. I live at 245 Keeler Road in Bridgewater. So I've been involved with various commissions here in town for almost 50 years. And we've built over 500,000 square feet of space in town and brought in a lot of companies. Currently, I own a piece of property in Brookfield, maybe one of the largest pieces in Brookfield, in the corridor, a piece on the border of New Milford and Brookfield. So this 40-acre piece, we started investigating the development of it maybe 10 years ago. And in exploring the various options of what we would do there, we decided that it was going to be an industrial park. We were going to bring in some big companies into Brookfield. The economy changed while we were in the process of getting approvals. But we didn't change our plans. Our family, Shannon and my other son, we continued. We put in almost $1 million in the infrastructure. We hooked into the sewer line. And we continued to market the property. When the economy changed, the bottom fell out. We had to stop. We weren't going to build a ghost building. And as it turned out, we were right, because we lost a couple tenants on Silver Mine Road, and it took us a couple years before we could fill them again. But we did. We brought in 160,000 square feet just this past year. If those buildings had been filled by our previous tenants, and we said you could go to this property up the road, but now we were confronted with what you're proposing, there would be no chance
there would be no chance, as the gentleman had pointed out, that they would go. They wouldn't go. There were too many options out there for them. So I'm a little confused to begin with. If you have a contract with Danbury for 500,000 gallons, how can they change that? Is it a one-way contract?
No, that's an unresolved issue.
Okay,
I
so
agree
that's-
with you, that's an issue.
All right, so that's unresolved.
That's an unresolved
It
issue.
would be a big-time
Yeah,
unresolved
yeah,
issue
yeah.
for me.
Well, it's a big time unresolved issue for the board as well, but
Yeah, I would imagine it
but it's
would
an
be.
issue.
Because guys like Steiner and Michaels, these are hitters here. These are guys that bring in the tax dollars to this community. And it's important. I'm one of the largest taxpayers in this town. I know how important it is, I get it. And we can't afford not to be able to talk intelligently to customers, companies that want to be in this community or want to be in this area. And how do we sell it with a question mark? We can't. We're out of business. And I've already got money invested in this site, so, and I know that at the time that we started to do the improvements, we did have approval for capacity. When we stopped, obviously, we lost the window, and we would have to reapply, and I understand all of that. But we want to continue. We just can't until you continue, until you win your fight. And by the way, that sewer pump station that the Steiners had given on 133, long before they gave theirs, we gave the pump station that's right down the road here the ability to build that pump station on our property for $0. So we want to be your partner. We want to continue. They do. The Scalzos do. Let's get it done. Got 500,000. That's the big question.
Yeah.
But Gary pointed out that it's not 500, that it's beyond 500. That's really should be our target. All right, thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Jim Fisher, 12 Airmont Circle. Full disclosure, I am the current chairman of the Economic Development Commission. First and foremost, I think I've been a resident in Brookfield since 1988. I want to thank all the developers here for donating land, for the stuff they've done in this town, to bring the projects to here, to help my real estate taxes, my residential real estate taxes. I own a house and a couple of cars. That's all I own in this town, and they've kept my taxes down for 30-something years. So I want to personally thank you on behalf of the town. This is a disaster, and this has to be corrected. Go to what Mr. Scalzo said, we can't have this. We just can't absolutely, if we're trying, right now, when the fire is hot, we're gonna have, you can see what's going on in the economy. There's gonna be a slowdown at some point. Right now, there might be a very small window to get some of these developments built. And if this happens, the capacity gets lowered, we get all these projects we're talking about just are gonna go like that, poof, it's not gonna happen. A lot of people in this room has worked very hard to have these projects happen. They've gone through the process, they've met all the regulations, they spent a lot of their money to get to where they are. And now for the rug to be pulled out from underneath them, as a person who's on the Economic Development Commission, it's really heartbreaking. I would beg you, do whatever you have to do to increase the capacity. The end users are gonna pay for it. I'm not gonna pay for it. I got a septic system. I pump it out every couple of years. I have to maintain it myself. But do whatever you have to do to increase the capacity for the projects that are on the books, and so that they can continue to list, market their properties, and that Gray can keep on selling the town to developers that are calling the town. We need to have the capacity, so you have to do whatever you can, or Steve Dunn does. I don't know who has to do it. but somebody has to get it done, and it needs to get done right away. This can't go on for months or months, and, you know, or lawsuits or whatever like that with the Danbury. It has to happen instantly, or as fast as humanly possible. You can't leave everybody out in the wind like this. It's not a good thing at all.
Thank you. To answer your question and Hal's question, just, the proposal is not to revoke any permits that have been already approved. You know, I think there's some data that will suggest that those permits will not generate the full amount of sewage that's been, quote, permitted. So we're not, the WPCA is not proposing to revoke any permits that have been approved. Now, some may lapse because, you know, 5 or 6, or, I mean, some will lapse if 3 years go by and there's no action. Steve had a comment, I think, yeah.
Where did the 2,000 gallons per day?
Well, why don't you comment about that? I was gonna ask you if anybody wanna speak about the 2,000?
Yeah, it seems like.
Well, given the problem, what do you see as the reasonable capacity?
I couldn't answer that question.
I mean, the Branson project was, I think, proposed, I don't know how many employees are there, but it was 7,000 gallons for Branson, and how many employees are there?
About 400, I believe.
400, so,
But it's interesting, Jeff, because I was going through some of the records, and everybody kind of looked at you when Cliff Gold back in the 80s, kind of came up with a 2,000 gallons per industrial acre was a good number to have. So it's funny that 2,000 acre went from 2,000 acre to 2,000 to a building. Yes, to a piece of property. Yes, everything have become more efficient as time goes on, but it's just interesting how that 2,000 got shifted to a property.
well, to answer Steve's question directly, the 2,000 figure came out of my head. And it was just a number, and I would love to hear, I think we would love to hear comments, if that's an unrealistic number, what the number should be.
But again, from a developer, it's hard to sell that, we don't know how many, you know, what's gonna happen. It's just hard, we've got a great administration, we've got a great working relationship with all the zoning, and everything in town has been great to work with, and all of a sudden you come last section, and it kind of puts a stipend. So yes, I know you're not gonna take away from the existing, but anybody new coming into town, I'm pretty much just gonna say, I can't bring in a Brookfield, I'll bring in a Bethel or a Denver. I'm not, Bethel's off the table.
Brookfield's off.
I'm sorry,
You basically,
I don't wanna do that, believe me, that's the last thing, but that's kind of what it feels like we're gonna have to go. I completely agree. Whoever new administrations are, we have to go to them like first, the next day and say, we gotta get these guys together so we can go forward and move forward. I believe with Gary Michaels that I think all they're looking for is the money, and again, it's gonna be a dollars that's gonna be passed on to the end user, not, yeah, it's gonna be an interim part-time, but you know, we need to do this to keep things rolling here. Like Mr. Scalzo said, it's gonna be a short term, because who knows how long this economy's gonna last.
Now, you wanna speak?
you have a short-term problem that needs a long-term solution. I'm sure you all
That's right.
recognize that. And the short-term problem, a lot of things are gonna happen in town. And if they get choked off, that short-term problem becomes a long-term problem.
Do you have his name and address for the
I do.
record? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Good evening, my name is Shannon Young. I live at 221 Christian Street in Bridgewater. Just wanted to get some clarification. In 2016 and probably earlier than that, when they were contemplating the design of the Danbury upgrades, I'm sure that your organization and organizations for all the surrounding towns participated in some discussion as to what do you see happening in the future? What's going on? What are the permits that are in front of us now with the plant as it is? And what do you see Bethel, Ridgefield, themselves, Danbury and Brookfield, as what would be the likely amount of flow you would anticipate over time? Am I fair to assume that that conversation happened? They can't just whip it up on their own, right?
Yeah, that really wasn't a great conversation, I don't think.
Okay, well, specifically, this is
I mean-
getting, this, because that, I think that has a lot to do with where we are right now. You know, we came into that meeting in 2016 with the existing permit that we have now of 500,000 gallons. And somehow that we wound out, come out of that meeting with 380. This didn't happen just now. This happened in 2016. Because the documents that are available on the internet from the city of Danbury, the PowerPoint presentation of the upgrades show the different towns and their allocations over time, what they have now and what they're gonna have in the future. So we have a reduction from 500 to 380, and I just don't understand how you could give the town of Danbury a number that was anything less than the amount of total capacity that is being served through benefit assessments. It would make sense that the minimum you could give at that point in time was to say, this is where the sewer line goes. These are all the properties that are on it. This is how much flow can get into that line. Why would we give them anything less than that amount? So I don't understand why you would go down. I mean, if I were to guess, I could guess that you were picking up an efficiency, seeing that their town, as you mentioned, was slow in growth at that time. And no one has a crystal ball, then you're trying to see why would we pay 500 if we're only using 3 something at that point. But it kind of shot yourself in the foot, shot us all in the foot. And specifically, Nelson, I just want clarification on something, because if you were the guy that was in that meeting, or in any meeting with Danbury talking about what the flows would be, you had mentioned that this is the kind of conversation now that is mayor to mayor. But it wasn't mayor to mayor on the design. But do we need to lean on our mayor, our selectmen, to the mayor? Because the feedback that I'm getting is that the existing mayor in Danbury, I really can't say that this is accurate, really doesn't want to touch this issue at this point. Like, get into this.
Well, he's out of office in
Yeah.
a few months.
On election
you know.
day.
Yeah, he's not
Well, I
running.
can't say that that would be allow him to abandon any of his duties. You know,
Well, we tried to set up a meeting and they've been unresponsive.
okay. But do you
I mean,
see-
I just so you know, I also spoke to the Assistant Corporation Counsel about the problem, and it was non-productive. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
It was, meaning, sorry, you told us 380, you're.
No,
you 380?
no. My question was, we have a contract for 500,000, and we're going to be over. We're going to. The plan is for 380. We're going to be over 380 by the time comes, and we got a problem. How do we solve it? You know, it basically was not, you know, not really responsive. So I guess because he felt that this isn't a solution to be had by lawyers, it's got to be had by people with higher or lower pay grades. I'm not sure which.
I understand. Does anyone know that if physically with the design, once the upgrades are done by, you know, April of 2022, do you know if it's physically, are we able to put in 500 to 700 without any additional capital improvement in the plant?
In Danbury?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
We think in the short term, they're not going to be at full capacity, so in the short term, yes, probably. I mean, we don't really know, though.
You know what, they've been singularly unresponsive to us for years. What's the deal? What we're gonna have to pay, when's it gonna do? So we're just not able to get anything out of them, and it's been real disappointing. Every time it's budget time, what do we plan? Nothing. So,
I can understand you're as frustrated as we would be. I just had one last comment that some of the creative ideas of you guys going to Bethel, reversing the flow and going north to New Milford, while they're creative and imaginative, that's not going to happen. That would be, you know, many tens of millions of dollars to get up there, and it would be at the opportunity cost of all of the New Milford properties. We'd take all of their capacity that they have right now, even though their plant has capacity, and all of their property owners would then be basically in the same situation we're in right now. So, you know, those property owners would not be able to hook up because the plant would already be full tilt at that point. But I appreciate you
Okay, thank you.
giving us the opportunity.
What do you want? The capacity. What is the new capacity?
What is the,
They've reduced it.
They've
No.
Question about
well,
the
they've reduced it even more.
nutrients.
What's
It
their
was-
average capacity?
balance that they have not reached. The chemistry was
what
having
the-
it. Because it's part of the
What's their
reason
design?
they can't
12
increase
It
capacity.
was 15.
They don't know how it's gonna run.
Are they aware of that?
We don't know anything from them.
Oh.
You, sir.
They haven't talked to us about that.
Yeah.
There might be more capacity than they think, you know, 'cause it's over
Good
design.
evening, my name's Gary Hawley. My family and I own several pieces of property along the main corridor. We just recently completed, the
Your address,
family-
Gary?
Pardon?
Address?
30 Germantown Road.
Okay.
Danbury.
Okay,
We
sorry.
just recently completed the Brookfield Family Medicine on the corner of 202 and 133. It's been a great project for us, and I hope a great project for the town of Brookfield. We purchased the property originally from the Steiners, who are great to work with. And that just led us to other opportunities on their property for us to have discussions with other companies to come in. That, to me, is in serious jeopardy. I can't tell a prospective tenant that maybe we're gonna have sewer. I have to disclose this. So, the most logical thing that they're gonna do is go somewhere else. And, I don't think the town of Brookfield wants that. I think that if there's any way possible to negotiate with the city, I mean, there's no question that capacity needs to be upped. And like everyone says, the end user is paying. This is a disaster for my discussions with some people right now. You know, I talked to Greg and, you know, great idea. Now what do I say? So I just wanted to make that point crystal clear that there's projects that are in very, very dire jeopardy right now because of this meeting. Just the fact that this meeting's being held is a red flag for a lot of people. Thank you.
And to follow up with Gary, is that these, as we all know, these projects don't happen, you know, it's like buy a car, you just go out and buy it. And I say these things take years and years to go through, so any kind of liability that you have, like, you don't want, you want to disclose it, but you know, these things take 2 or 3 years. Our contract took 2 or 3 years just to get it, it takes approval, so these are long-term investments that we've all made into this town, which we think is a great town, so I think we're just trying, whatever we can do to help get this moving forward, and maybe we should put it on until we get the elections through, and maybe we should put a hold on this moratorium for 6 months, don't do anything until we get the new elections signed and figure out who's, and then try to do it there, and then if it's a problem, then look at it again, but just to kind of arbitrarily say as of January 1st, nothing new coming in, it really is, it's not great for that option.
Mr. Hawley, do you have any opinion as to what the actual flows from that medical building are?
Well, obviously, you know, we had to, that was part of the application.
Yeah.
I just don't, I don't.
No,
Okay.
besides, they wouldn't be accurate now, because the last year they had no patients in the building for most of the
okay,
time.
all right, okay, all right. Gary?
Yeah.
Gary Michael?
Just have 2 quick points. It's Gary Michael, 52 Deer Hill, Danbury, Connecticut. Nelson said that Bethel has capacity for 2 million gallons. They're currently using 1.2 million gallons. That means there's excess capacity in Bethel of 800,000 gallons. Now, I know Bethel is, you know, a growing community as well, but I would urge our selectmen and our commission chairman to discuss something with Knickerbocker to get that capacity or a portion of it to be able to take care of the development that's going on in this community. That's the first point that I would strongly suggest. The second thing I have to ask you, Jeff, is in your amendment, you write permitted discharge of excess of 2,000 gallons per day, unless the property falls within one of the following categories. The first category is properties which have been subject to a levy of sewer benefit assessment. So if the property owner has paid the sewer benefit assessment, is he allowed to tie into the sewer?
The purpose of the amendment is to restrict capacity of a mere 2,000 gallons a
But you
day
say here,
to two properties that have paid a benefit assessment.
So those people that paid the sewer assessment, the maximum they can use is 2,000 gallons?
That's the intent.
Okay, I read it differently. Thank you.
Okay. For many years, we've had on the books that one of the categories of people who could use the sewer were people who've been assessed.
Jeff, just for clarification on that point,
Yeah.
I have 40 acres. Are you saying to me that that piece would be allowed 2,000 gallons a day?
Correct.
The prior approval that I had, that is obviously lapsed, was 16,000 gallons a day. Now, 2,000 gallons a day wouldn't permit us to even offer that project to a company like, it's right next door to us, like Brown Technologies. I mean, how can I build them a 100,000 square foot building and tell them they got 2,000 gallons a day? So I think you need to be thinking through how that allocation happened.
Well, I think that's why I invited the public to speak to the 2,000 gallons a day.
One other point. You have in this room, I think, a half a dozen or more developers, none of which, I think, would object to going as a group to speak to whoever the next first selectman is immediately. Am I right?
Absolutely.
It's kind of the dream team.
There you go.
Anybody else wish to speak to this issue?
Just
Yeah,
Paul
yeah,
Scott,
Paul.
third tutorial. Well, that's what I was gonna suggest. I mean, these guys negotiate every day. That's what they do. But I'm hoping that you'll abstain from the vote. And I agree with Mr. Hawley. If you're talking to somebody because you had this meeting, you automatically have to tell them that there may be an issue coming. So, I mean, I'm hoping that you abstain, you don't vote. I'd rather default than have a vote that you're gonna have. I'd rather default on the agreement with Danbury and let the chips fall where they may. Get some guys together, who negotiates better than Gary, right? Right? We all know that. And you got Lloyd, I mean, you got big taxpayers here in Danbury, let alone Brookfield, that could go and talk, and I think that would be the thing, maybe form a subcommittee, whatever you want to do. But I don't think, if you vote or continue this, it's just gonna kill our run. And again, you know, I've been at it 40 years. Right now, we're finally talking to people, and people are getting ready to begin projects. It's like 5 years out of 40, and I don't think we can afford to let this happen.
Thank you.
I guess we're done. Okay,
Anyone else?
Okay, it's not,
okay.
okay,
Thank you all.
thank you all for
Adjourn the
coming.
meeting?
No, we gotta
We're gonna close the public hearing.
close the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, hearing no more comments, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I make the motion, Loretta Donovan.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
What's the
Okay.
next step?
Well, the first, I think we go right into the meeting here.
We're gonna convene over at the.
Should we take a timeout? Yeah.
I don't know, is, before, while everyone is here, so they can maybe go home, is it the intent that you act on this tonight, or discuss it tonight, or?
I would like to sit on it a little bit, sleep on it, yeah. Yeah, okay,
Thank you
Roy.
for coming.
Thank you, Roy. So we're not gonna discuss it tonight?
All right.
We can discuss
Good.
it.
Well, if they may wanna hear the discussion, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yes.
Well, we are, it's
But we're
early
gonna
on the
go back
agenda,
to our
but
headquarters.
I'd like to,
The state was on about phosphorus removal and
My
nutrient removal in their water, and I
preference is
said,
gonna
well,
be to,
we're only using 7 million gallons a day, why do we need a 15 million gallon plant?
I think it's just some people gotta get together.
this has been great in terms of,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? And so it pushes the envelope.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, I think we have to do
I
that.
vote, we're not a land use.
When do we face the boogeyman? Now or later? That's,
Well, we're gonna have the meeting here, right? We're not going over to the other.
yeah, we'll have it here.
We'll have